know why you clicked on this video. You want to know the truth behind Taylor Swift's eternal youth. What if I told you that I was Taylor Swift's makeup artist, and I saw the ritual that keeps her 25 forever? This isn't some celebrity gossip or a rumor you've heard. What I'm about to tell you is the dark truth behind her ageless beauty, something most people would never believe. I had always admired Taylor from afar. Her music, her style, her presence. She was everything the world saw, and more. But nothing could have prepared me for what it was like to work with her up close. When I first laid eyes on her in person, I remember thinking, she looks perfect. But it wasn't just perfection. It was unnatural. At first, I thought it was just the lighting, the makeup, or maybe even her genetics. After all, she was a superstar. But the more I worked with her, the more I realized something was off. Taylor never seemed to age. She was stuck at 25, untouched by time, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. There was an unsettling stillness to her beauty. Like she was frozen, but not in the way people talk about celebrities being frozen in time. No, this was different. This was unnatural. I'd see her day after day, and no matter what we did, no matter how much time passed, she looked exactly the same. Too perfect. Her skin, always flawless. Her eyes, piercing, sharp, but somehow vacant. I started to wonder if anyone else saw what I was seeing. I mean, I wasn't the only one working closely with her, right? So why did it feel like everyone else was pretending she was just another person, when I could feel that she wasn't? At first, I tried to dismiss it, telling myself it was just stress. Celebrity life does that to you, right? But then it happened. One night, as I was doing her makeup, I felt it again. The coldness. It was subtle at first, just a chill that seemed to come from her. I couldn't explain it. Her skin felt like ice, but she was still warm to the touch. I had to fight the urge to back away. But that wasn't the worst part. As I looked up at her reflection in the mirror, I saw something I couldn't ignore. Her eyes, they weren't just sharp, they were glowing. A faint, almost imperceptible glow. But it was enough to make me freeze. I blinked, thinking I was imagining it, but no. Her eyes had definitely changed. My heart started racing. What was going on? Was this some trick of the lighting? Had I been working too long? Everything okay? Taylor's voice broke through the haze of my thoughts. She was looking at me through the mirror, and her expression was calm. Too calm. I smiled, trying to ignore the creeping sense of dread building in my chest. Yeah, just a long day. But as I continued to work, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Taylor wasn't just immortalized by fame. She was frozen in time, and there was a dark secret I was now a part of. I couldn't put my finger on it, but I was starting to realize I had just stepped into something I couldn't escape. And the more I tried to tell myself it was nothing, the more I realized it was everything. After that night, I couldn't get the strange feeling out of my head. The coldness in her skin, the glow in her eyes. The ritual was becoming more real to me with each passing moment, and I couldn't ignore it. Every time I went to work, every time I stood behind her applying makeup, I felt like I was being pulled deeper into something I wasn't prepared for. But the worst part, I couldn't stop myself from wanting to know more. I couldn't walk away. Then came the night Taylor invited me to dinner. It wasn't out of the ordinary, just another private gathering, another chance for me to spend time with her and work. But when I arrived at her mansion, I felt a strange heaviness in the air. There was something different about tonight.
The room was lavish, filled with soft candlelight and the scent of something sweet. Incense, maybe. Taylor was standing by the window, her back to me, as if waiting for me. The moment I stepped inside, she turned, a smile playing on her lips. There was that familiar perfection again. Too perfect. Almost like a picture that could never be touched by time.
"You're on time," she said, her voice light and warm. "I'm glad. We need to talk." I tried to smile, but I couldn't shake the sense of foreboding. Something about her words felt like they carried weight. She wasn't just talking about dinner. I could feel it in my bones. "Talk?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "About what?" Her eyes locked onto mine, and for the first time, I felt a little uneasy. It was as if she could see straight through me, reading my thoughts like an open book. She took a slow step forward, and for the first time, there was a shift in her energy. It wasn't the calmness I had grown used to. It was something darker, more intense. "You've noticed, haven't you?" Taylor's voice was low, almost as if she was telling me a secret no one else was meant to know. "You've noticed how I don't age, how I stay forever young, no matter how much time passes." I didn't speak, I just nodded. I didn't need to answer. We both knew what she was talking about. It wasn't just the makeup or the lighting, it was more than that. Her beauty wasn't natural, and deep down, I'd known that all along. "I know you're curious," Taylor continued, her smile widening. "And I can see the conflict in your eyes. You want to know how I do it, how I stay like this." I felt a lump form in my throat. My heart started to race, and I realized that what she was offering wasn't just an explanation. It was an invitation. An invitation into something I couldn't understand, but desperately wanted to. "What do you mean?" I finally managed to say, my voice barely a whisper. Taylor stepped closer, closing the distance between us. Her eyes never left mine, and in that moment, I could see the truth of it all reflected in her gaze. This wasn't about beauty routines or aging gracefully. This was something much darker.
"There's a ritual," she said, her voice almost too calm. "A pact I made a long time ago with a force far beyond what you could imagine. It keeps me forever 25, but there's a price."
A cold chill ran down my spine. I couldn't breathe. I had heard rumors before, stories of celebrities who never aged, who stayed beautiful and perfect forever, but this was real. I stared at her, trying to make sense of it. A pact? With what? A force? A demon? "What do you mean? A price?" I whispered, my throat tight. The words felt heavy on my tongue, like I was opening a door I couldn't close. Her smile didn't falter. "A sacrifice. Every time I stay young, someone must be given to maintain it. Blood, life, a soul. The cost never ends. It's how I stay untouched by time. And now, I want to offer you the same." My heart stopped. It felt like the world around me froze. Taylor wasn't just beautiful. She wasn't just ageless. She had made a deal. She was bound to something darker than I could comprehend, and now I had been pulled into it.
"You don't have to make a decision right now," Taylor said, her voice soft again, but the weight behind it still lingered. "But you've seen too much now. You're already a part of it, and I can give you everything. Youth, beauty, power, eternal life."
I stood there, frozen in place, not knowing what to say, what to do. The temptation was strong. The allure of eternal youth, of staying forever young, of having the world at your feet. It was all too much to ignore.
But I couldn't shake the fear that was gnawing at me. This wasn't just about staying young. This was about sacrificing others to keep it going. The truth was horrifying. The cost was too high.
And yet, I couldn't turn away. I was already too deep. "Think about it," Taylor whispered. "When you're ready, we'll begin." And as she smiled at me, I realized with sickening clarity, I wasn't going to be able to walk away. I had already joined her world. I couldn't stop thinking about what Taylor had said. The offer to join her in immortality, to be bound to the ritual that kept her forever young, it haunted me. I knew something was terribly wrong with it. The truth was out there, waiting for me to uncover it. But the more I thought about it, the more compelled I felt to understand, to truly know what it meant. Days passed, but the weight of the secret Taylor had shared with me weighed heavily on my mind. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I had to see it for myself. If I was going to be a part of this, I needed to know exactly what I was getting into. So I began to search. It started small, curious glances around Taylor's mansion, trying to find something that might explain all the things I couldn't understand. And then, one evening, after another long day of applying makeup, I found myself walking down a hallway I hadn't noticed before. The walls were decorated with family portraits, and the air was still, almost suffocating. As I turned a corner, I saw it. A small, almost hidden door at the end of the hall. It was out of place, tucked away in the corner. I had never seen it before. Something inside me told me to leave it alone, but my curiosity pulled me forward, stronger than any sense of caution. I reached for the door handle, and for a moment, my heart skipped a beat. I turned the knob and stepped inside. The room was colder than the rest of the mansion, almost too cold for comfort. It was dimly lit, the shadows stretching across the walls like dark fingers. The room seemed small, but there was something oppressive about it, as if the very air itself was heavy with secrets. It didn't take long for my eyes to fall on the altar, the thing that stopped me in my tracks. A cold stone slab, surrounded by strange symbols that had been etched into the floor in dark red paint. Candles sat on the edges of the altar, their flames flickering like the last breaths of something long dead. I couldn't help but feel like I was trespassing in a place I wasn't meant to see. But the more I looked, the more I felt a twisted sense of fascination. Then, my gaze landed on something that made my heart drop to my stomach. On the far side of the room, bookshelves lined the walls, filled with thick, ancient tomes. There was dust everywhere, and the air was thick with something I couldn't describe. I couldn't stop myself. I walked closer, drawn by something I couldn't explain, and pulled a book from the shelf. It was old, worn, its leather cover cracked and faded. It felt heavy in my hands, as though it carried with it the weight of centuries. The pages were yellowed and brittle, and when I opened the book, the words were written in strange, almost unreadable script. My fingers trembled as I flipped through the pages, and then I saw it. There, in the center of the book, was a drawing, a detailed sketch of a ritual. The same ritual I had seen that night with Taylor. The same symbols, the same offerings, the same sacrifice. It was all here. I couldn't breathe. The journal was full of detailed descriptions of the pact Taylor had made, a pact with an ancient dark force in exchange for eternal youth. The ritual wasn't just about beauty, it was about feeding the curse, keeping it alive by sacrificing the lives of others. Each time Taylor stayed young, someone else had to die. Their soul, their essence, given up to keep her immortal. The truth hit me like a freight train. I had been blind to it before, but now, standing in this room, I saw it all. The sacrifices, the deal with a demonic entity that kept Taylor at her perfect age, forever. The truth of it was too much to bear, and yet I couldn't look away. I wasn't just a witness anymore, I was part of it. I had become entangled in this dark web, whether I wanted to be or not. And as I stood there, trembling, the reality set in. I could never escape. But I wasn't alone. The more I read, the more I realized there had been others. Others who had disappeared, who had served in this twisted cycle only to fade away, never to be heard from again. They had given their lives for Taylor's beauty, and now I was next. Whether I chose to accept it or not, I was already a part of the ritual. The entity had marked me. Suddenly, I heard a noise behind me, and my blood ran cold. I turned, and there, standing in the doorway, was Taylor. Her eyes were locked onto mine, and there was no warmth in them, just cold, calculating certainty. "You shouldn't have come here," she said, her voice low, almost like a warning. But I couldn't take my eyes off her. I knew it was too late now. The curse had already claimed me. I don't know why I stayed. After everything I had seen, after the horror of that room, I should have run. But the truth was, I was already too deep. The pull of the ritual, the dark energy that surrounded Taylor. It was impossible to ignore. Taylor's offer still lingered in my mind, and the temptation to embrace it was growing stronger with each passing day. But that night would be the moment everything changed. Taylor had called me to her private room again, the same room where the ritual had started. The sense of foreboding was thick in the air as I made my way through the mansion. It was quieter than usual, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was waiting for me. I should have known then. I should have run, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. When I walked in, the atmosphere was different, darker. Taylor was already standing by the altar, her back to me, her figure illuminated by the flickering candlelight. The air felt heavier, like the world itself was holding its breath. "Come closer," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't want to. I didn't want to get closer to the altar. But something pulled me forward. I was already trapped. And deep down, I knew that this moment was inevitable. As I walked toward her, I saw the altar again. It was the same as before, but this time, there was something else, a figure standing next to it. It was hard to make out at first, but as I drew closer, my heart stopped. It was a person, bound by chains, their body limp and lifeless. I froze in place, my breath catching in my throat. Taylor turned slowly, as if she knew I was just beginning to process what was happening. Her smile was soft, but her eyes were cold, calculating. "It's time," she whispered. "This is how I stay young, how I stay forever 25. I couldn't speak. The words stuck in my throat, the horror of what I was seeing suffocating me. The figure at the altar, they were the sacrifice, I realized with sickening clarity. "You see," Taylor continued, her voice calm as though she were explaining something simple. Every time I stay like this, someone else must pay the price. The ritual requires it. The weight of her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I couldn't breathe. This wasn't just about beauty or fame. This was a curse, a dark force that required life, blood, to sustain Taylor's immortality. And now, I was part of it. I had seen the ritual, and whether I wanted to or not, I was already drawn into it. Taylor didn't wait for me to speak. She moved toward the altar, her steps slow, deliberate. Come, she said, holding out her hand. It's your turn now. You've seen everything. Now, you're a part of it. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. The darkness, the weight of it, had already claimed me. I was no longer an outsider. I had been drawn into this world where the price for beauty was sacrifice. Taylor stood by the altar, and I saw her reach for the knife, the same knife I had seen before, the same knife that had been used to cut, to sacrifice, to keep her immortal. I felt my heart race as she moved closer, the blade gleaming in the dim light. Don't be afraid, she said, her voice soft but full of power. You're already a part of this. All you have to do is accept it. I was trembling. I wanted to pull away, to run, but my legs wouldn't move. I was rooted to the spot, paralyzed by the weight of the ritual, the weight of the sacrifice that had already begun. Taylor raised the knife, her eyes locking onto mine with a cold, calculating stare. This wasn't about beauty anymore. It was about power. It was about control. The ritual wasn't just for her. It was for the entity that had given her eternal youth. And I was in the middle of it. I had become part of something I didn't understand. Something that fed on others, fed on life itself. But then, as the blade hovered above the altar, Taylor's eyes softened. She looked at me with something that almost resembled pity. You'll understand soon enough, she whispered. You've already been marked. I wanted to say no. I wanted to run, but the words stuck in my throat. I knew deep down that there was no escaping this. I had already seen too much. Taylor's voice broke through the fog of my thoughts. Now come. This is your choice. This is the moment you decide whether to join me or become the next sacrifice. I felt the weight of those words, the coldness of the knife in her hand, the dark presence in the room. The ritual was coming to its end, and I knew that whatever decision I made would decide my fate. In that moment, the entity was closer than I had ever felt it, watching me, waiting for me to make my choice. I didn't want to be part of this. I didn't want to be immortal at the cost of others' lives. But what choice did I really have? Taylor smiled, her perfect immortal smile, and whispered, "You've already chosen. You just don't know it yet." And with that, I realized I had no choice. The ritual had already claimed me. There was no going back. The days that followed felt like a blur. Taylor's words, her offer, everything about the ritual haunted me. I couldn't escape it, not even when I tried. Every time I looked at her, that perfect, ageless face, the weight of the curse she carried pressed down on me harder. I had become entangled in it, whether I liked it or not. I tried to focus on the job, to pretend that nothing had changed, but it had. The power that Taylor wielded, the darkness that kept her forever young, it was a weight on my shoulders. The closer I got to her, the more I felt myself drawn into that world, a world I didn't understand but was now a part of. And it was too late to walk away. But then came the worst part, the conflict. Taylor had offered me eternal life. She had shown me what it took to become part of her world, but I wasn't ready to accept it. Was I? The idea of living forever, of staying forever young, of being immortal, it sounded tempting. Who wouldn't want that? But the cost, the sacrifices, the innocent lives taken to keep the ritual alive. How could I possibly be part of that? I spent nights lying awake, wondering if I should go to the authorities, if I should expose everything I had learned. But something held me back. A dark part of me wanted to join her, to be a part of the ritual, to feel the power that flowed through her. Taylor had seen something in me, something that made me feel like I was meant for this. But what would it mean for me, for my soul, to join her in this endless cycle of life and death? I couldn't shake the feeling that I was caught between two worlds. One foot in the normal, everyday life I once knew, and the other in the darkness that Taylor had opened my eyes to. Every time I went to see her, I couldn't look at her without remembering the ritual, the knife, the sacrifice, the entity that controlled it all. And the more I thought about it, the more the temptation grew. One night, after another long day, Taylor called me into her private room again. Her tone was softer this time, almost persuasive, like she was trying to coax me into something. I couldn't resist. I walked into the room, but this time, there was no smile. Her expression was almost sad, like she had made a decision for me already. "You've been avoiding me," she said, her voice soft but firm. "But you know the truth now. You've seen what happens, and you know what we are, what we can be." I stood in front of her, unsure of what to say. The conflict inside me was tearing me apart. I wanted to say no. I wanted to walk away, to never look back. But the pull of the ritual, the promise of immortality, kept me rooted to the spot. "I'm not ready," I whispered, barely able to speak the words. Taylor stepped closer, her eyes never leaving mine. "You think you're not ready, but deep down, you already know. You've already chosen, haven't you?" Her voice was like silk, soothing, but there was an edge to it now, a finality. I swallowed hard. She was right. I had already made my decision the moment I had stepped into this world. I was already a part of the curse. I had already seen too much. I had already felt the power of the ritual, the temptation of living forever. "You can walk away," she said, her voice still calm but with a hint of sadness. "But you won't, because you'll never be able to forget what you've seen. And when the time comes, you'll join me whether you want to or not." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I wanted to deny it, to say that I still had control, that I could stop this madness. But deep down, I knew she was right. I was trapped. The ritual had already begun, and it wasn't just her I was tied to. It was the entity. It was the dark force that had given her youth and beauty, and it was the force that would claim me in the end. "I can't," I said again, my voice shaking. But it wasn't just denial anymore. It was fear. Fear of what would happen if I didn't join her, fear of what the ritual would demand from me if I didn't accept. Taylor's eyes softened, and she reached out to touch my arm. "You don't have to be afraid," she said softly. "This is the way. This is how we stay forever." And in that moment, I realized that she wasn't asking me to join her in the ritual. She was inviting me into it, whether I was ready or not. The decision had already been made for me the moment I saw the ritual. I was already marked. "I'm not asking you to decide now," she whispered, "but the choice is yours. Embrace it, and you'll never have to worry about time again." I could feel the darkness wrapping around me, pulling me in, and I knew there was no turning back. I was part of the curse now, and there was no escape. The weight of Taylor's words lingered in the air long after she left the room. "You've already chosen." It echoed in my mind over and over like a curse I couldn't shake. No matter how many times I told myself I had a choice, no matter how much I wanted to believe I could walk away, I couldn't escape the truth. I was already part of it. The temptation was there, growing stronger with each passing day. Eternal youth, power, beauty, forever. It was everything I had ever wanted. The way Taylor lived her life, flawless and ageless, was intoxicating. Immortality was a siren call that I couldn't resist. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized what it cost. The sacrifices, the lives taken to feed this curse. Innocent people consumed by the ritual to keep Taylor and others like her eternal. I couldn't forget the figure at the altar, the soul who had given their life so that Taylor could stay 25 forever. I could still see their eyes, the lifeless, hollow expression they had worn, the way their body was offered up like a piece of meat to the dark entity that controlled it all. And that was the moment I understood the cost. I understood what this all meant. I had seen the ritual up close, had witnessed the demonic presence that Taylor had made a pact with. And yet, I still felt myself being pulled deeper into the web. Taylor's world was too perfect, too alluring to ignore. But I knew that if I accepted it, if I joined her, I would become just like her, trapped in an endless cycle of feeding the curse, a part of the darkness. It wasn't just her beauty I was after anymore. It was the power, the immortality, to never grow old, to never feel time take its toll. The curse offered that, but it demanded a price no one should be willing to pay. And yet, despite knowing all of that, I was still conflicted. Every time I saw Taylor, every time I felt the pull of the ritual, I felt myself getting closer to accepting what she was offering. How could I walk away from that? The days became a blur, but I couldn't stop thinking about what Taylor had said. I wasn't alone in this. I had already crossed the line. No matter how much I tried to resist, I was becoming a part of this dark world. A world where immortality came at the expense of others' lives. The guilt, the fear, it ate away at me. I had seen too much. I had felt the pull of the entity. It wasn't just Taylor now. It was the curse itself. It was coming for me. I had no way out. One night, when I could no longer keep the thoughts at bay, I confronted Taylor. I couldn't keep pretending I didn't understand anymore. I couldn't keep lying to myself that I wasn't already marked. I walked into her room, determined to finally confront the truth. "You've been avoiding me," Taylor said as I entered. Her smile was softer this time, almost like she understood the conflict tearing at my soul. But I could see it in her eyes. Certainty. She knew the choice I was about to make, even before I did. "I've been thinking," I said, my voice shaking despite my best efforts to stay calm. about everything, about what you've offered me, and
You've already made your decision, she interrupted, her voice low and soothing. I know you. You want this. You want the power, the immortality. You're just afraid to admit it.
I swallowed hard, the truth of her words crashing over me. She was right. I had already chosen. I couldn't fight it anymore. I had already seen too much, felt the rituals pull too strongly. The darkness was inside me now. I don't want to hurt anyone, I said, my voice trembling. I don't want to be part of this curse.
Taylor stepped forward, her gaze never leaving mine. You already are, she whispered. You've seen it, felt it. You're part of this world now, whether you like it or not.
Her words sent a chill down my spine, but strangely, I felt comforted by them. There was no more pretending, no more running. I had already been claimed by the ritual. It had marked me the moment I stepped into her world. You don't have to be afraid, Taylor said softly. The choice is already made. All you need to do is embrace it. You'll never age. You'll never grow old. You'll stay beautiful forever.
It felt like a dream, an impossible dream. But it was real, I realized. The curse was real. And now, it was part of me too.
Taylor's smile was like a beacon guiding me into the dark world she inhabited. And in that moment, I understood. The price of immortality was one I couldn't escape. It was already paid for me. I had already chosen. I was no longer confused. The choice had been made, and there was no going back. Taylor's world had become mine. The ritual wasn't just something I had witnessed. It was something I was now bound to, whether I was ready or not. The days after our conversation felt like a dream, but also a nightmare. I moved through each moment in a haze, the reality of what I was becoming slowly sinking in. Taylor's words were constant in my mind. You've already chosen. The thing is, I couldn't even argue with her anymore. I had seen the power the ritual held, felt the temptation of eternal youth, the lure of never aging, of never losing that perfect beauty. But there was more. There was the darkness, the hunger of the entity that controlled it all. I couldn't escape it. I couldn't escape her. The next night, I received a call. It wasn't just any call, it was the call. Taylor wanted me to join her in the final stage of the ritual, the one that would fully bind me to her, to the curse, to the endless cycle of immortality. I wasn't surprised. In a way, I had been waiting for it. Taylor had always made it clear that there was no middle ground. If I wanted the power, if I wanted to stay young forever, then I had to embrace the ritual and everything that came with it.
When I walked into the room that night, I could feel the darkness in the air. It was heavier now, thicker. The shadows seemed to stretch, their edges curling and twisting like living things. Taylor was standing at the altar again, her back to me. But this time, she wasn't alone. There were other figures in the room, people I didn't recognize. My heart began to race. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. This was it. This was the moment I had been both dreading and longing for. As I stood there, frozen, Taylor turned to me, her face glowing in the candlelight. There was no warmth in her smile this time. No warmth at all. Only purpose. "This is how it's done," she said quietly, almost matter-of-factly, as if this was all so normal. "The entity doesn't just want beauty or youth. It wants control. And now,
It's your turn to take your place in this world.
I tried to speak, but my voice failed me. The terror that gripped me now was unlike anything I had ever felt. This was no longer a choice. It was a binding. I was already marked. There was nothing left to do but accept it. Taylor reached for the knife, the same one that had been used for the sacrifices before. I could see it now, gleaming under the flickering candlelight, sharp, deadly, and full of purpose.
Don't be afraid, Taylor said, her eyes locking onto mine. She stepped closer, her movements slow and deliberate, as if she knew I was already hers. You wanted this. You've always wanted this.
I didn't answer. I couldn't. The words were stuck in my throat, lodged there by the growing dread that wrapped around me like a vice. My body trembled, but I couldn't stop it.
The ritual had begun.
She moved the blade closer to my skin. I could feel the cool metal against my arm as she traced the line of my vein. The air thickened, the shadows deepened, and the world around me seemed to blur. "This is how it's done," she repeated, her voice a soft whisper now. Her eyes were no longer the same. There was something alien in them, something that belonged to the entity, not her.
With a quick, smooth motion, Taylor made a cut on my arm, just enough to make the blood flow. I flinched, but she held me in place. The ritual was happening. My blood was now part of it. The darkness surged, and for the first time, I felt it. The entity, alive and watching, consuming. The room seemed to pulse with it. The shadows wrapping around us as if they were alive, feeding off my sacrifice. It was then that I understood the full cost of what I had stepped into. The entity didn't just want my blood. It wanted my soul, to claim me, to bind me to the cycle, eternal life, but at the cost of everything else.
Taylor looked at me, her eyes glowing even brighter now. "You're mine now," she said softly, almost lovingly. "You'll never age, never die. You'll stay perfect forever, just like me." And then, everything went dark. I couldn't move. My heart was pounding in my chest, drowning out everything else around me. The room had gone completely still, suffocating in its silence save for the flickering of the candles. I was no longer sure if I was alive or if I had already passed into something else. I couldn't see anything beyond the shadows closing in on me. Taylor's words echoed in my mind. "You're mine now." She was right, wasn't she? I was no longer just a witness to the ritual. I was part of it. I was part of the curse that had bound Taylor to eternal youth, and now I could feel the darkness inside me too. The entity's grip on me was undeniable. I could feel it in my bones, in the blood that had been spilled to feed it. I was already being claimed by it. And in the deepest corner of my mind, I knew that there was no turning back.
The ritual had taken hold. The blood, the sacrifice, it was now part of me, intertwined with my soul. It wasn't just Taylor who was trapped in this never-ending cycle. I was too. I had chosen it, even though I hadn't realized it. The entity's power was already coursing through me, filling the empty spaces I hadn't even known existed. I could feel the immortality settling in, like a heavy weight, a bargain I couldn't break. I tried to scream, to cry out, but it felt as though my voice had been swallowed by the shadows. The darkness had claimed me. Taylor's face loomed over me, her smile as perfect as ever. But now I could see it in her eyes. The truth. She wasn't just beautiful. She was forever. But it wasn't freedom that came with it. It was a prison, one she had locked herself into, and now I was locked in with her. I wanted to run. I wanted to escape, to feel human again, to feel like I had a choice, but the entity's power held me in place. I was part of the cycle now, and there was no escape from it. I had seen too much. I was already marked forever. Taylor stepped back, watching me, her eyes gleaming. "Welcome to eternity," she whispered softly. And I knew she wasn't just talking to me. The curse would continue, and so would I, forever.